father went, one of their fathers went to the Alvord to look for the Blue Bucket Mine. So just interesting little weird tidbits of history. So that's
Are
been
you
keeping me.
are you writing that for the paper?
Yeah.
Fun. And I'm gonna have to start subscribing that paper just to read your articles.
I know. I'm sorry they're behind the paywall, but
No,
I
that's,
think newspapers are having a hard time these days.
I would love to hear or see more of your writing. The stuff you sent us has been really,
Thanks.
really great and fun to read. Mark Labhart, are you reading her stuff as it comes out?
I am. I was just gonna blow some smoke on her there, but she already did it. So she did. The last one was really great. I thought it was very interesting and informative, and she you can tell she does her homework. So yeah, you might be able to call just thenugget.com or something like that and get it online. I don't know if they do it or not. Just reporting, let's see, I was going to talk about the fires. As of this morning, there's one Jones fire 10 mile east of Ventura is now 3,800 acres, 0% containment. There's one 7 miles northeast of Mitchell right now. It's 8,000 acres, 0% containment. There's one 6 miles northeast of Ty Valley, 5,000 acres, 0% containment. One northeast of Brothers, 5,000 acres, 0% containment. And one 8 miles northwest of Ontario, it's 312 acres. And then another one 32 miles southwest of Dayville, 7,700 acres, 0% containment. And another one 13 miles south of Dayville, that's 3,000 acres, 0% containment. Another one 10 miles west of Burns, it's 1,000 acres, 0% containment. And then the one that we all know about, I think the Chiloquin fire, as of this morning, it was 3,500 acres. It burned an additional 1,500 acres last night, 0% containment. So I think summer's back. Yeah, it's supposed to be in the 90s all week. So yeah. Kind of burn up some more country here. So.
That's the same thing. We had that really nice, cool weather. We even had some rain. Our yard turned incredibly green in just a few days, but it's right back to 96 and smoke out the window. And although that Chiloquin fire, it's not. I think it's getting better. I'm not sure. I can't believe it's 0% contained because they've been flying planes and hitting it really hard.
Yeah, they'll call it 0% containment until they kind of feel like they've got it corralled. Then they'll start immediately, 10%, 20%. They're pretty touchy about calling anything contained, but that still has the potential to jump the line. So, and then the other thing, just report on, the governor has reappointed me to the commission. So I'll wait till September to find out whether the Senate will approve me or not. So if they do, you might have to put up with me for a little while longer. So
great. Yay.
Yeah, we'll see.
We gotta keep you going.
That's the end of the report.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I had an interesting thing with all the fires in the West. I've been buying a lot of seed, grass seed, and various seeds from a place called Great Basin Seed Company in Utah. And they got a great website and tons of different seed varieties. So I was on there today looking for, because I need to get some perennial ryegrass. And their website now is totally focused on seed mixes for seeding places that have burned. They've got all these mixes of seeds for various types of burns, various elevations. That just happened. It's like, we react in so many ways to things like that. It's now become the norm. So this company has all these seed mixes specifically for reseeding burns. It's interesting stuff. Jane, hey, how are you doing, Jane? I got you with your
Sorry that I'm eating my lunch, but I just now got back from a meeting on the Harborton Frog Underpass, which we funded some of the feasibility study on, and they are now at. Well, sorry, somebody's dog set off my dog. Anyway, they are now at 30% design. And so they were presenting their plans this morning. So that's cool. Other than that, I'm not sure.
So that's just so everybody that wasn't on that trip, that's not the same as the frog crossing that's right down the road. So it's really great that you got them both going there.
Right.
That was a cool trip. Have you got any late reports on the more recent crossing? Is that completed or close?
All I know is they said this morning there have been some delays, but they're planning to get it done by October. The frogs start bringing in December, so that should be fine.
Oh, that's great. That'll be interesting to see how that works. Jim Hammond, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Carl. Let's see. Last time, I think I reported on fires, and then it seems like we had about 2 weeks where it wasn't too bad. And now you're talking about those fires south of Dayville. They went from, they were just a lightning strike about 36 hours ago, and they were, they were up to 10,000 acres. Everything just blew up yesterday. It wasn't so much the heat as it is the wind. But now that they've, you look at them and they haven't manned these fires. They've ordered things, but they haven't manned them yet. And so these fires are, it's different. And they're burning right up against the fires that burned, and they got control finally. But I think what Mark was talking about, looking at the situation report, I found a website at NIFC that gives a situation report, but also gives a running total of how much is spent on fighting these fires, and it's scary. The Pioneer Fire up at the head of Lake Chelan, been burning since June. It hit $102 million yesterday. It is the most expensive fire in the country right now, followed closely by some fires in California, but we spend so much money fighting these fires and so little on defending infrastructure, hardening infrastructure, and it's just pretty amazing to me. But anyway, on the personal front, we've been working on our garden. Bluegrouse season opened 3 days ago, and I went up and hunted bluegrouse for a little while and got hot and sweaty and but had a good time and got some exercise. Other than that, it's been late summer. I'm really looking forward to September and October.
Interestingly, one of my friend's son worked that fire in Idaho, and you were talking about how expensive it was, and he was thrilled because he made a ton of money. So I guess that's that whole economic thing of the broken window, whether that's an economic boon or not. You spend all the money to fight the fires, and that money goes into the hands of all the college students that are out there manning it. And I didn't realize they don't get paid as much. They could be on duty, but they don't get paid. As soon as they get on the fire, they really get paid well. So,
well, when you start looking at the cost breakdowns, the salaries of the people actually on the ground are a very small percentage of the expenditures. When you start looking at the support at the camps and the laundry trucks and the tenders and all the equipment, that's very high dollar. I mean, when we were down in Yosemite, we had a couple of big fires, and I looked at how much we were spending on CAL FIRE engines with a crew, and it was almost between $15,000 and $20,000 per day per engine, and we got rid of those as quick as we could. But it's just spendy. It really is. I mean, it's no surprise that we spend more than $3 billion doing what we do, fighting fires. And I there's got to be a more efficient solution, but I don't know what it is.
I don't know either.
So I have a question for Jim. Did you get any grouse?
Oh, yeah, I did. They aren't where they usually are. Usually they're in the currant and gooseberry patches. But this year, the weather just wasn't, and I knew as soon as I got into them, there were just no gooseberries. And so I had to go a little further and look in other places. And I finally found them right toward the end of the first day. But I know where they are now. They're much lower than they've ever been this time of year. But yeah, I got a couple, but I know where they are now.
Did you have a four-legged friend help you out?
Oh no, I don't take the dogs in there because if I do, I have to spend about an hour combing all the sticky seeds. Dog bane, is it the one that's the little triangle? They are awful in a Brittany, and I don't have that problem with chuckers. And also, my dogs range way too big for blue grouse. And these blue grouse are really savvy where I hunt them. They don't hold very well for a dog, so I just walk.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good to hear you got a little success anyway.
No, there's grouse around for sure. They're just in different spots.
Liza Jane, you got grouse up where you are?
Yes, we do. We do. Nice to see everybody, and yeah, that little bite of fall felt good, although I didn't really believe it. But it's nice. We had hella storm last night with those big winds, but we had lightning all night long, and I'm not sure what got started, but we had a lot of rain with it too, so that's all good. Jim, thinking about the cost of fires, I wish we could work together on prevention. Like think about what kind of forest and landscape we want and then start spending that money to create that and don't say no to anything. I think that's the only way. Because fire can be great, but not in the landscape that it's in. It's just yeah, it's just a disaster for a long time. And great to hear they've got Great Basin Seeds has seeds for burning, because we're in an NRCS program and an EQIP program trying to reseed specifically smooth brome and to get rid of that. And the only way they're telling me to do it is to spray it or plow it. And we don't do either of those. And so we're going to burn it and then seed it. So maybe there's some good mixes to work in without having to plow that stuff up.
I've been really impressed with that Great Basin Seed Company. They got incredible variety of seeds.
Great.
The seeds I've gotten from them have been quite good.
I wrote it down. I'll be looking into that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Here at home, too, I've got an event we're hosting on Thursday here with American Farmland Trust on succession planning. And we've got Six Rivers Mediation and Oregon Ag Trust are going to come, and we've probably got about 30 people signed up. So looking forward to that. And, I guide fly fishing on the ranch and my neighbor's ranch, and fishing has been so much fun.
Oh,
It is, oh my gosh, the trout are just so sassy and fat, and it's just an absolute blast. Several clients that have never fished before, and they're still fishing strong. They're catching fish with us, and then they go get fly rods and they're getting after it. So the work with the wildlife crossing is going really good. We have contractors for the feasibility study, and they're going to start in October and be done by spring. So I feel like that's moving along really, really well. I'm going to do a press release or something about it in another week or so. So we're starting to let people know what we're cooking up. That's about it.
Well, man, you're involved in some great stuff, Liza Jane. That's
Fun.
good to hear.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Mark Stern, how things in the urban area?
Things are good in the urban area. We spent the last week up in eastern Washington kayaking around Banks Lake, which is kind of an offshoot of the Columbia. And it's interesting up there. It's basically a reservoir, but that area is all flooded from the Missoula flood. So there's a lot of ups and downs and nooks and crannies. It's not just a rectangular reservoir. So it was really fun out there. And we did it last year when it was nearly 100, when it was kind of baking. This year it was a little milder and really pleasant up there, just to poke around and see what was going on there. But I guess other notes to share, I just wanted to second or third, Moret's writing, it's not only interesting, it's just really well written. You read the first few sentences and it just draws you right in, and you have to read the whole article. So Moret, it's not only great research, but really good writing as well. So thank you for that. And I haven't been a big book reader lately, but Jim, you mentioned that book Fire Weather last time. So I, dug it up on my Kindle, and I'm glad I have it on my Kindle because I'm getting the sense it's a lot longer than I thought it was. The Kindle has that magic of you don't really know how long the book is. You just sort of start reading. But the fire up there at Fort McMurray in 2016, the story, one, it was just interesting to realize what a rural industrial complex Fort McMurray is with the I probably won't pronounce it right, but the bitumen, the low grade oil basically that gets mined up there. That's what that whole economy is. That whole part of Alberta is based around it, and the town grew around it. And then that fire in 2016 was just a weather storm of black spruce burning and coming into the town with 88,000 people evacuating with miraculously no fatalities from that. And you're hearing about the fire personnel going in, passing their families who are evacuating. It's a sobering story, I guess. And, hearing the fire reports again, as if we've seen this year in Oregon, it's um, sobering, I guess would be the word to say. But it's an interesting read up there. So, Jim, thanks for passing that along. And I figure I'll finish it sometime in January, but I'm working on it. And then the other one I noticed in the local Sisters newspaper, it mentioned that there'd been the first phase of a feasibility study had been completed for some of the wildlife corridor issues between Bend and Subtle Lake. And I think 4 of them were identified in that stretch, mostly around the Black Butte Cinder Cone, and had a brief conversation with Mike Toady about it. But it sounds like they're on top of that and making that happening. And it made me wonder if those are candidate areas for some of the wildlife corridor funding that we have in the queue, so to speak, and how we can think about maybe that can line up and be ready to go when those funds become available as well.
Yeah,
Other-
when we got those funds, it seemed like it was just going to be, in the distant future. Well, the distant future is here already, and we really need to kind of get an update on where all that stands. I guess there's still a chance that the bonds won't be sold, but yeah, so at some point, Reva, we should talk to Sarah and at some point and try to get an update on where that funding stands, because that's going on, as Liza Jane said, it's happening in her neck of the woods, and then we've got the stuff around Bend, so there's going to be a lot of demand. And the one over in Ashland, there's going to be a lot of demand for that funding. So
Yeah, I kind of wondered too, if some of those groups that are ready to go or have a plan for the next phase could go ahead and apply for that funding now, so that, maybe it gets through the grant proposal process and potentially the approval process. So they're ready to go come May, June next year, when that funding potentially begins to come online. So they don't have to wait 6 or 8 months to even just get in the queue.
that's a good thought. We did that for the ODF&W project, and it would, certainly have to be a situation where, the work is going to be happening fairly imminently. But yeah, that door's been opened, so we have that process to consider.
Also, Carl, I didn't mention, but Department of Transportation's going around the state right now asking for public feedback on how to spend their money or what to spend money on and what to ask for. And so there's a lot of room to advocate for the 5 million a year for wildlife crossings into their budget too.
Wow, that's I imagine the department's aware of that. Certainly someone's got to be advocating for that. Maybe the Oregon Hunters Association would be an important entity to get involved with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about y'all, but around here, there's so much highway work going on. It's unbelievable. And,
No, and I really wonder what the cost difference between a wildlife crossing and roundabout, since Bend has so many of them now. I guarantee you those roundabouts cost an awful lot more than a wildlife crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a great avenue to address. Too bad Srishti's not here because she would know who would be the right folks to contact about that.
Well, I could send out the list of their meeting schedule. There's still several meetings around the state, and you can always call in or write a letter advocating and asking for that. So I could send that to you, Carl.
That'd be great.
to
Why don't you do that? And actually, if you could send it to
Leslie Jean,
Rita.
why don't you send that to me and then I'll forward it to the
Yeah.
whole committee.
Okay, Reva, will do.
Great.
Great
And there are
idea.
groups in Central Oregon working on the whole wildlife crossing thing. Central Oregon Land Watch has been one of the leaders with that. So there are a number of people working on it that I don't know if they probably all know, but we can maybe, I don't know.
I've been following it a little bit. It's a legislative subcommittee that's going around the state. And, ODOT is severely underfunded now in terms of long-term, mainly because of less gas tax revenue. Mostly what they're funding right now is federal projects that came with federal funding. And so they're trying to figure out a way to try to secure additional funding for ODOT for the future. And it's everything from tolling to higher fees, all of those kind of things. So that's what they're doing, is they're asking for input prior to the 25-27 legislative session. So timing's right to at least get the word out from wildlife crossing standpoint, because it is something that I think ODOT needs to pay a lot more attention to, but I'm biased, of course. But, yeah.
Well, it's another subject, but the argument being made on the cost of collisions is quite significant. And there's an economic argument to be made about it. So.
Yeah, I can send our letter too. It has some good stats in there about the number of people killed, the number of people injured. If we got $5 million a year for the next 20 years, we could make 30 overpasses or something like that. That's all in there. And it's helpful for
Right.
me, always to have something to kind of go off of. So I'll send that to Reva too.
Great. Well, thank you. We need to spend some time talking about that. I think we might even have that on the agenda, but Mauricio, how are you doing, man?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I am doing okay. I celebrated my twins' 7th birthday this last weekend, and the theme was kittens, and so everything around kittens. So the whole house is riddled with pictures, stuffies, and it's been fabulous. And also this last month, as this is the busiest season when we have multiple events across the Portland, Vancouver area, hosting families, trying to imagine themselves in the outdoors. So it's been wonderful. There's one particular event in which it was just so beautiful to see 15 different languages spoken in 100-yard radius, and all kinds of organizations trying to just facilitate this sort of like relevance for people who may not have it. So always a very gratifying part of the year. And yeah, it's been trying to spend some time outside. We've been blessed with some incredible sunsets here in Portland. that just out of postcards and just a good reminder. Sometimes we live constantly in the future and all the things that are coming, the projects that are developing, the things that may or may not happen. We often forget not to be present in the very moment and just look around all the beautiful things that we have, to just center us. And that whole, we keep preaching this idea of finding ourselves a sense of belonging in nature, and it's right there all the time. So to stop for a second and just be there. And it's just so invigorating. So I'm trying to do that more.
Thanks for that, Mauricio. Living in the now. Thanks, my friend. So Kelly, well, at least at the coast, it's got to be less dry and less fire.
It is, all these conversations are, it was us last year. And so I'm just really so grateful that it's not us this year too. And I'm sorry that it is some of you. We've had about 39 fires on our district and they've all been put out, thank goodness. So it's been quite a few, a lot of lightning, some random, people doing dumb things too, as is usual. So it's been a good year, at least for us over here for fire, but it is, we've had the weird weather too. We took our kids, speaking of living in the present, we did the Wild and Scenic Rogue River trip with the kids a couple weekends ago, and it rained 5 inches on Friday night, and they were such troopers. We sat on the boat all day in like full rain gear. It was the night that it was the coldest. It was like the lowest highs record for August. It was 56 degrees all day, raining. So the kids did so good. They just sat on the front of the boat in their fleece and their rain gear, just, until we got there. And so it was, we had like winter on Friday and fall on Saturday, and it was finally like summer on Sunday. So we paid our dues to get it. And then we rented a lookout at Bald Knob Lookout. It's out in Powers, which I have not spent a lot of time in Powers. Incredible, amazing old growth. Just, again, we hiked to the top of Mount Bolivar with the kids. We went to South Fort Coquille Waterfalls. Like, they have just been, school started today. So we're like, let's just ram out August. So we've been doing stuff every weekend with the kids. But yeah, no, it's been pretty good here, relaxing here. We're building a deck on the front of our house, and it's windy and warm here today. Yeah, I can't complain. I got a lot of really good projects in the queue coming up for next summer, and so those are super exciting to work on, and lots of really good partnerships too. So anyway, just looking forward to a good September.
Kelly, I love hearing all the stuff you do with your family. It sounds great. You're always doing something cool.
Fun.
It sounds like Jenna has some experience with rain and raft trips and kids from her comment there.
Oh man, I'm impressed. They were such good troopers, Kelly. We're actually heading out Thursday. We have our second float of the summer, and the forecast is opposite. We'll be in the triple digits for our trip the first 3 days, it sounds like. So opposite problem, but we are taking a couple kids. It's their first trip.
That's a better way to start though.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's their first overnight trip, I should say, but they're 5 and 8, so it'll be really fun. Excited for that. And I was just thinking about the burn and fire comments. I'm just off a few days on the PCT just through the Trinity Alps in Northern California, and a whole big portion of that section of the PCT burned. And I was thinking about the replanting thing, Carl, because it's wilderness. So, there's not much going on in regards to replanting, reforestation. And there's a whole lot of a couple of species that are popping up and pretty much taking over. So I'm not aware of the dynamics or the details, but it got me thinking about reforestation and also just revegetation on those steep slopes. But anyway, that's all the fun stuff. From a work standpoint, I'm working hard on some Salmonberry Trail governance work still with OPRD, ODF, Tillamook County, Washington County, Port of Tillamook Bay. So that's really a cool multi-jurisdictional effort. And then we are also working on the Curry County Master Plan in our team here. at OPRD. And we'll be looking at some October meetings. So watch for that, Kelly. You'll get an invite. And what else is near and dear? We're also working on master plan prioritization. I think I mentioned that last time. And then just doing some Go bond projects, the general obligation bond projects that are still alive through the various cost estimates of projects, which we all know are through the roof these days. So we've had to pare down our list a little bit. And then I guess just because somebody mentioned it, I'll put on my other hat, which actually is how I knew Commissioner Labhart from my last life, which was transportation. I am on the Rogue Valley Transportation District Board down here in Southern Oregon, and participated in the Joint Transportation Subcommittee hearing and roundtable here in Southern Oregon. And actually, I wanted to let you know that wildlife crossings did come up. I believe Amy Amrine called in to the public testimony part of that that event that was 2 days down here. And my understanding is they are finishing up those public meetings. The schedule's online, but there will be lots more to come through the legislative session this spring. So, and then I forwarded on that note, I'm also married to ODOT, and my husband is working with Amy Amrine and some others on a wildlife crossing, and so he's tied into some of the trail cams that SOU has up, and he sent a picture this morning of the cutest thing ever, some bobcat kittens. So tying back to Mauricio, even look at me weaving it all in. Some bobcat kittens crossing a culvert. It is so cute, and it will warm your heart. So thanks for the time, and yeah, good to see everyone. I'll come on camera in a minute. I just need to switch back off of my phone. So see you soon.
Thanks, Jenna. Yeah, I was just thinking about, we talked a lot about wildlife crossings as well as fire, but now that we'll have a report a little later on our outreach and public publicization of the OCRF, and maybe weaving the wildlife crossings into all of that, since it's such a need, and kind of getting that message out. That might be one of the facets of that approach, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Reva, why don't you give us an update?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I've been pretty busy getting our fall RFP ready and launched. So that just launched on Friday. So we are now officially open for applications, where we have our call for proposals open. Application is people are welcome to start applying for our fall RFP, which is exciting. And then let's see what else. I am also in my free time preparing for a big wedding next week. So I'll be going to New Mexico for a big wedding out there, and excited to be in the desert a little bit, New Mexico.
Where in New Mexico you're going?
Taos.
Taos, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool area. Well, great. Well, thanks, Reva. Thanks everyone for the update. We got, I think, a good agenda today, but I guess the first thing is to recognize the folks in the audience. Reva, you want to do that?
Happy to. I'm seeing actually quite a lot of ODFW folks have joined today. So let's see, we have Joshua Smith from ODFW. Thank you for joining. He's the Mule Deer Coordinator. We have Casey Johnson, also from ODFW, Regional Habitat Biologist. Thanks for joining today. Huge shout out to Ashley Kahlberg, who's our contract specialist, and she is working very diligently to get our contracts out the door for these projects to happen. So huge round of applause for Ashley, and thanks for joining us today and spending the time. We appreciate all that you're doing for all these projects. And I'm seeing Dennis White joining. I'm not sure about the organization association, but I believe is an applicant. Yes, I believe so. Dennis White is
Yeah,
a
hi,
OCRF
Dennis
applicant.
White. I work with Otter Rock Marine Reserve community group. So
That's
I
right.
like to listen. I just like to listen in once in a while. So
Great. Thank you so much for joining, Dennis. We appreciate it. And let's see. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Oh, Mike Toady from Oregon Hunters Association. Thank you for joining as a regular joiner of our meetings. And of course, we have Terry Lysick, who is going to be presenting to us today on the Wolverine Trucking Project. I
Great.
believe that's everyone.
Thanks, Reva. Well, let's do the minutes and get that out of the way. Oh, Liza Jane.
Yeah, Carl, you didn't get to do an update, did you?
Well, we were already behind schedule a little bit.
Oh,
so-
you're important. We got to hear from you.
Oh man, well, but I've been having some great fun. I got to go experience Kelly's part of the world. We went tuna fishing. Went 30 miles off the coast, and I saw albatrosses. Oh, it was so, I was like, wait a minute, that's a big bird. And it was the black-footed albatross. And just and there was so much life out there. Whales, humpback whales all over the place. It was just mind-blowing. And we caught a bunch of tuna, and oh, that was fun. And then right after that, we did our annual crawdad harvest on the Williamson River. I got 300 crawdads and boiled them all up and had a feast. So been having a great time lately. Thanks, Liza J. I just was trying to keep things moving along, but I've been having a great time. But I thought of you, Kelly, when I was over there. Man, the coast is so great. But I got to see those albatrosses. That was exciting. So that was my report. So why don't we do the minutes? You got that, Reva?
I do. Let me just pull it up just a second. Let's see. We can all see that. Oops, I think I passed it. There we go. Are you all seeing that okay?
Yep. Can someone make a motion?
I'm happy to go.
Great.
I move to approve the August 6th, 2024 meeting minutes with the continued authority to correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, great. I think Kelly got it. All in favor? I see hands and thumbs. We're all good. Great. Well, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. We'll actually get something done. I do love that little bit of conversation we all have. I truly love hearing from all of you and what you're up to. And I love the insight that you all bring to this. And so thanks for all of that. And we did go a little bit longer. I apologize to the audience, but I think it's a really important thing. Okay, at this point, I think Reva's got some things to talk about with the OCRF review process, the scoring and feedback we've been getting. Reva, do you want to take over?
I do. Yeah. Thanks, Carl. So I guess I'll just dive right into our scoring and reviewer feedback. So each grant cycle, we have the OCRF has been providing since I believe the beginning of the OCRF, reviewer scores and comments have been summarized and provided to our applicants. And this is so crucial. It is incredibly valuable to our applicants. And it really helps these organizations come back and reapply for funding for the next round and for future rounds. And so it helps them to be successful in future rounds. So I have just recently gone through this process with applicants providing feedback, summarizing feedback and scores, and I have some lessons learned to share with the group. So, in, from round 7, so just some lessons like, things that really went well, and then areas of improvement so that we can help improve our process for the next round. So,
Hey, Rita, excuse me, is it possible to make the print any bigger? It's a little hard to read, just
oh
small.
yeah, is it the screenshot of the scoring criteria that you're talking about?
Yes.
So that is, I can make that bigger, but it's really just a screenshot of our
Okay.
Scoring criteria. So I wasn't actually going to like go over it point by point.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right. So, I heard from folks that they were very appreciative of the comments and that was provided to them. They found it very valuable, and they were they thought it was so helpful for them as they were going to be working on their applications and applying for reapplying for OCRF to fund their projects. And so, first of all, I want to thank everybody for spending all that time and effort and that you put into these project reviews, because I have definitely heard that it was very appreciated as I have passed this along. And so thanks to all of you and for all your hard work on these reviews. And they found that the comments were clear and helpful, and it was going to help them, with their reapplication. And then I also heard from a few applicants that they had a request for more feedback from the reviewers. This is from, both technical and committee reviews. So some of the reviewer comments, they could have been elaborated on a little bit more. And so something I saw was some projects had received less feedback than others. And so some projects had a plethora of feedback and others might have had less to work with. And so something we're always, trying to do is improve our processes and learn from each round as we go on. So I just wanted to, on behalf of the program, urge the committee to provide more consistent feedback for our upcoming round and round 8. And I think that this will be, and this could be both, appreciative and constructive feedback on the projects. And so having this more consistent feedback from the reviewers is going to just kind of help me do my job even better and pass these reviews on, since I have to be responsive to our applicants and pass on the feedback during the evaluation process.
Yeah, Lariva, I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit from my own experience. Riva contacted me and said one of the unsuccessful applicants was really interested in some feedback on their application. I had reviewed that application, and I don't put any comments on. When I fill it out, I put 0. I've never put a comment on it. I grade it and that's it. And someone else on the committee had reviewed it, and Riva sent me their comments, and oh my God, there was so much thought put into it. And that was very helpful to the applicant to say, this is a little bit lacking, or this was a really good part of the application. And I just hadn't done that at all. So there is a place to do that. And for all of us, we should consider doing that. I think it's a good exercise. I was a bit chagrined that I really haven't done it at all. And that whoever, I think maybe it was Kelly, that had just really put some really good, insightful comments down. So consider doing that as you're going through. That allows Riva then because Riva had to come to me and say, hey, can you relook at this and tell me why you didn't rate it particularly high? And I did that, but it's a lot simpler for her if we're able to put some comments down. So just thought I'd bring
It
that up.
also makes really much better applications just for your guys' future thinking too. It's really great for as an applicant, I will say, to make it better. But if we want people to really tune into what we're looking for, then it's really, really helpful.
Thank you, Carl and Kelly. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I think you guys said it great. It just be making it a little bit more consistent for next round, I think would be really helpful. And I have just some screenshots to kind of show what we're looking at. So for example, this is kind of what the evaluation will look like in that new grant software. And so in this comment section is where you could put why you scored it a 6, why you scored it lower, what could they improve on. And then something I would recommend is actually, if you don't have a lot to say for each of these categories, besides well done or, could be improved in this area, is this last section of our scoring criteria is the general alignment sections. And sorry, these are kind of small, Mark, these ones here, but it's the connection to ODFW section, which is a good portion of the points for our scoring criteria, and also the alignment with OCRF program priorities. And so these areas could have like summarized comments of the whole project as a whole. And I think that would be a good location to put some general comments as well. If you're looking for a location for that, would be helpful. And also because these are a good chunk of the points. Liza Jane, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Quick question. Are our names attached to the comments we make? And no way that could happen?
No, definitely not. Your
Cool.
names are kept anonymous. So that's why I actually pull comments and I summarize them and I put the scores in in like a packet for the applicant.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yeah. All right. Any other questions about comments or reviewer process for our next round before we move on?
Reva, having just been through this one time, the biggest problem I had with the comments were I just wasn't sure how those were going to be used. And my assumption was that they would be transparent as we were going through and making discussions or making adjustments. But having you explain the way these comments are being used with the applicants certainly helps me and I hope others understand how to address that in the comment section, because I focused on the ones that I was rating high, not the ones I was rating low, and I probably should have done just the opposite. But I really do appreciate you explaining that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jim. And sorry that wasn't clear, but that's what we're trying to do now, is make everything clear for the next round. So thank you.
I think everyone would be very pleased to know how hard Reva works on communicating with applicants and trying to keep everyone satisfied with the process. She really puts a lot of time into that. So thanks, Reva.
Yeah, you bet. No problem. Happy to do it. Happy to work with these folks and help them on their applications and with questions they have. I enjoy working with them. So.
Okay, so if that is all we have on that, one of the things we have done trying to be responsive to folks is we've moved up our, did you want to go over this or go into public comment, Reva?
Yeah, before we go into public comment, sorry, it's going to be a little bit later, I think, just because I have a few more things to go over with you guys. So I wanted to just bring up the fall RFP timeline real quick, and then I have some website updates actually to share, which are, we have made some improvements to the website. So first off, just I've already said this, but our request for proposals for fall is now open and made public. And it's going to close in 2 months on October 29th. And then the OCRF Advisory Committee review period is scheduled for mid-December to mid-January. And so please let me know if anybody has any time conflicts with that review period, or if we need to, work anything around there. All right, and then, so I promised some website updates. So you've probably seen our ODFW OCRF website kind of has this look and feel to it. And this has now been updated to a more modern, mobile-friendly version, where it's going to be more user-friendly. It's a little bit easier to navigate. And so huge thanks to our webmaster, Bob Swingle, for all the work he's done on this. He's been trying to make our website more user-friendly. And so if people go on with their cell phones now, you can actually, it's going to shrink to the size of their screen. It's just going to be a lot more easier for them to navigate our website. So I'm really excited about these updates. And here's a screenshot of our OCRF Coalition page and kind of what that looks like now. And our advisory committee page has been updated. Our call for proposals. So it's all getting updated in this website updates. All right, that's all I had to share, Carl. And if you wanted to move into public comment.
Any questions for Reva or comments? It's great having that website upgraded. And that's all part of this outreach we're talking about. Liza Jane? I think you're on mute, Liza Jane.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I started by saying I've had a lot of coffee today. Can you tell? But I was wondering if you've ever considered letting us get the applications at the same time the technical review does. Just gives us more time to read them, and we wouldn't score them, but we could read through, then get the results of the committee, and then go back and score. I always read them twice. I don't know. I like lots of time. More time, the better. And especially this year, closing in on a big holiday in the middle is going to be a challenge there. So have we ever thought about that?
Yeah, I think that actually last round I did kind of stagger. So I did release the technical staff review assignments and then the committee review assignments just a few weeks apart. So we could do something similar for this round. I'm definitely open to doing that if that's going to be helpful for the group.
What does group think?
No, I think I think we could access those pretty early on, if I recall. I didn't, but I think we could. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea to make it so that it's available so you can start things early.
Okay,
If all of them are released at the same time and you don't know what your assignment is, trying to go through that many is a little bit overwhelming, though.
I want our assignment, like whatever we're assigned, is the only ones I want to look at.
Okay, and I agree with that, Liza.
Yeah.
Is that something
Okay.
to?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can I can have the committee assignments ready by right around just a little bit after the technical review assignments have gone out. So that way you guys can have hopefully we can work in like 7 weeks or so instead of the 4 to 5 weeks that were originally scheduled.
Is that a lot more work for you, Reva?
No, it's just, I'll just stagger my the time that I spend to assign these. I'll make sure that that's going to get done a little bit earlier than originally planned, but it's not a big deal. We can make it
Okay.
happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Good idea, Eliza Jane. Okay, again, we're a little bit late, but we moved public comment earlier in the meeting, so if people wanted to make comments, they didn't have to wait till the very end. So at this point, we can open it to public comment. Has anyone communicated with you? Mike Toady has his hand up. Mike, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Winter and members of the committee here. So Mike Toady, Conservation Director with the Oregon Hunters Association. I listen in on not quite all of your meetings, but I try and sit in on a lot because this is important work you're doing, and thanks for your time on this. I wanted to call out one of your committee members and thank him. Mark Stern reached out to me here. And Mark, you're going to have to help me. I think it was a couple weeks ago we were talking about this, but Mark reached out and he had, through some of the public relations materials and releases we had done around a project there in Central Oregon with a wildlife crossing called the Bend to Subtle Lake Project. And that might sound familiar because this committee helped fund a part of the phase 1 work for that project there. So Mark and I just kind of got to talking about that project in particular, other projects around the state, and kind of funding opportunities and what's coming up next there. And I just make a long story short here, and Dr. Winter, you need to cut me off because I'll talk forever here. But we started talking about the wildlife habitat connectivity and crossing money that was approved in the 23 legislature pending bond sales in 2025, which could start as early, and I'm going to do a lot of kind of hand waving air quote stuff here, around May or June of 2025. So if you think back or just remember back to that slide that Reva just shared, that's when funds get released for this next round of projects. And so as we think about progression and timing and how those things come together, let's just say somebody like the Oregon Hunters Association or Oregon Wildlife Foundation or the partnership there, and there's the star of your show right there that just came on screen, Tim Gresseth. We applied for a big chunk of that money coming up for phase 2 of this project, which is some technical design and pretty expensive work that comes up there. And let's just say the committee approved that. By the time that goes through the process and eventual commission, hopefully approval in March of 2025, we're right there at the doorstep. So the timing of that funding came together, and I just kind of wanted to bring that up. So also with the Bend to Subtle Lake project, Commissioner Labhart knows this pretty well, but if you are not familiar with the Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting agendas, and if you look on every one of those, there's a field director report and a field report. And in this version of the field report, in the East Oregon region, you will see a story on the Bend to Subtle Lake project that's going on there, and also recognizes Oregon Conservation Recreation Fund as one of the funders for phase 1 there. So good place to look for information. And just wanted to bring up all those conversations that you were having earlier around wildlife crossings. There are several coalitions around the state. One of them, Wallowa County Wildlife Crossing Project, that Liza Jane's involved with. The Bend to Subtle Lake Project, Southern Oregon Wildlife Crossing Coalition down on the southern part of I-5. Burns Paiute Tribe is working on some projects out in the Juntura country there. So these things are kind of going on. Highway 97 continues as well. So lots going on in that. And so given that, I would just prepare the committee to be thinking about seeing some applications come in for big chunks of money. This is expensive work. Jim, I have no idea how much a roundabout costs to construct, but I'm getting a better and better idea of how much it costs to construct a wildlife crossing and an overcrossing there, and they're not cheap, and those costs continue to go up dramatically just in the time it takes to plan for those. So happy to answer any questions around any of that, whether it's around the ODOT side of things or the funding side of things or any of those projects. But thank you for your time and your work on this.
Mark Labhart.
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Mike, for all your work on that. And I just want to make sure that we also, Liza Jane has a project up in Northeast Oregon that's really important to them. And then there's also projects down in Southern Oregon that's important. So it's going to be a tough hoe for this committee because, of course, the original 5 million is not going to go very far. So but there's going to be hopefully a lot of leverage coming in with some of the federal money. There's the next round in the federal, and Tim can probably talk about this, but I think it was 350 million, something like that. And they're allocating that out over a multi-year period. And Oregon was not successful the first year, but I'm betting Oregon will be successful the second year because of what Mike is saying, because people are in line, ready to go and doing their homework and getting projects going. And I'll close with the only problem I have with Mike is it looks like he's got a Washington State jersey on right now. I'm not sure I can support that. Okay. Go Beavers. So sorry.
Yeah. The Pac-2 there. So along those lines, just to kind of, fill in some more of the blanks there, the money that OCRF and others are contributing to, that's typically what we're using aside from the phase one, which is probably like the cheapest part of these projects, is really just match money for big federal pots of money. And it's at that scope and scale.
This is a really good conversation for us to have now because we kind of put this on the back burner thinking, 2025 is a long ways off. It's not that far off. We really got to be thoughtful about this. We got to kind of get geared up. Just what Mike's comment about matching, maybe that is a major part we can play, where that becomes one of our criteria. Is we're certainly not going to be able to pay for the entire project, but we might be able to really help when it comes to matching. And that may be one of the things as we're constructing the process to assess these programs that we incorporate things like that into it. But I think the point is, Riva, maybe even as soon as our next meeting or fairly soon, we need to start having conversations about getting geared up to make that $5 million get the most bang for our buck out of it. So something for us to put down for future talks. Mark Stern.
Yeah, good conversation. I just wondered in terms of, I think Mark Labhart, I think you mentioned anyway, the state's applying for another to be part of that $350 million that the feds have available. I just wondered, who leads that for the state? Does that come out of ODF&W or ODOT, or where does that responsibility fall or opportunity?
Mike Cody?
No, go ahead, Mike.
I can answer that if you'd like, Commissioner, but when we get to that scale, it comes through ODOT, and they have their own prioritization process. So in this next round coming up, they are planning to apply for, as I'm told, and I had a conversation, was part of a group that visited with Mac Lind, one of the deputy directors from ODOT here just recently. And they're looking at applying for the Southern Oregon Wildlife Crossing Coalition, some funds for that. That's the one on Southern I-5 down by Ashland. And then also to complete a project on Highway 97. I think the one in the Sun River country there.
Yeah, Mike, I think you're obviously well connected on this, and we should have some conversations with you, and I think Tim Grethus as well has some good insight, and figure out how the OCRF can maximize the impact and also get some of the word out about this wildlife crossing and try to make it easier for ODOT to make decisions in favor of these wildlife crossings. So that's something, again, maybe we can incorporate that. Tim, I don't know if you heard the conversation earlier, but as we're rolling out our publicity outreach project, that maybe we can include wildlife crossings as a key point of things we're doing and get the public as well as the legislature thinking about those things. And making sure we got funding for it. So very timely comments, Mike. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. Any other public comments? Tim Gressett?
Yeah, I guess I would just hasten to add to what Mike was saying, and he and I are involved with a lot of the same conversations around crossings, and particularly seeking out new sources of funding support, because we can't rely on federal funding for all of the work to be performed in Oregon. We are as probably competitive this year as we're going to be, because we have projects that are far enough along in terms of the design and engineering process to kind of stand on their own 2 feet and be competitive with Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, a number of other states that are far ahead of us in terms of planning for and they're really organized around trying to deliver on these kinds of projects. So I think this is really a great opportunity. We really, in addition, need to be able to source some of certainly the design and engineering costs, here in the state. And so there is conversations going on about how we can work with ODOT, and maybe Mike brought this up, but ODOT has included $5 million a year in their budget for wildlife crossings, and that presumes that their budget actually gets approved as it's submitted to the governor's office and for the legislature to look it over. But if in fact that does happen, that would be a reasonably sustainable source of funding year over year. And so we're with other partners working to align behind that and try to make sure that the right folks know that that's in the ODOT budget. And we'd really love to keep it in the ODOT budget through the process here, and love to see it in the governor's budget. So trying to advocate in the right places for finding solutions here within the state, in addition to being competitive at the federal level.
Well, thanks, Tim. Certainly the OCRF is right in the middle of all that. And so we should this is good timing to bring all this up. And one thing we don't want to have happen is, the highway department's getting $5 million a year. We don't need to sell those bonds. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. So we got some things to do. We got some coordination to do. I think Tim and Mike and Mark Labhart and certainly Mark Stern, maybe we can get together and strategize. And I think Srishti might be really helpful on kind of knowing how to navigate this kind of stuff. Maybe we can turn this into a really focused effort. That's going to be more effective than trying to piecemeal this. And then we need to be concentrating on how the money we spend is, again, the most bang for the buck. And so having a nice coordinated efforts, this is really great time. And so Reva, let's make sure we sort of officialize this a bit and have an agenda discussion about it maybe next meeting. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, good discussions. All right, so at this point, I think Terry Lysak has been waiting. We're not terribly late, but we're late. Sorry, Terry, about the delay, but I think it's time to move on with the project presentation. Do you have that lined out for us?
Yeah, thank you. No, it's been very interesting listening to you all. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting and letting me learn a little bit about all of you. Yeah, it's been good. But yeah, and I'm also incredibly grateful for your support for our Wolverine tracking project. And I'm going to share my screen. Oops, and start from the beginning. Okay, can you all see?
Yep.
Not that slideshow. There we are. How does that look?
Looks great. Very good.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Terry Lysak, and I'm with Cascadia Wild, and the project that I run a community science project called the Wolverine Tracking Project that monitors rare carnivores on Mount Hood, and it's one of the projects that you all funded in the, let's see, one grant is about to end at the end of the summer, and then you also gave us another grant that will start for our winter season as well. So this is our third grant that you have awarded us, and we are very grateful. So anyway, I'll start by talking a little bit about Cascadia Wild. We're a really small organization. Our mission is to connect people with the natural world. So we teach classes in various naturalist skills like animal tracking, wild plant foraging, botany, that sort of thing, to help people connect to place and understand the natural world. But the Wolverine Tracking Project is by far the largest, by far most of what we do. And like I said, a community science project collecting data on rare carnivores on the Mount Hood National Forest. So volunteers are out collecting data out in the field, and then I kind of oversee that collection and compile the data and then hand it over to our partners who are the ones that use the data. So we're partnered with the Mount Hood National Forest and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. Though we also work with other organizations and agencies as well. This year, we're actually tying in with 2 grad students, which is pretty exciting. One with Washington State University, who's doing a study on Sierra Nevada red fox genetics and distribution in the Oregon Cascades, and another grad student who's doing a study on red fox diet throughout the West. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, our survey protocols and target species and such are set in consultation with our partners who are the ones who are using the data. So it's a very collaborative project. We have 4 main target species. It's named the Wolverine Tracking Project. I always have to explain this. No wolverine are not on Mount Hood. Unfortunately, we hope that someday they'll return, but the project got its name because it was started just by a group of local trackers to follow up on some unconfirmed reports of wolverine in the area. And to date, we have not detected them yet, but that picture that you see is pretty exciting. One has been roaming the Willamette Valley recently. Yeah, and this picture is the first one seen in the area, and interestingly, first reported by a volunteer with the Wolverine Tracking Project who kind of understood the importance of that sighting. So wolverine is one of our hoped-for target species, but we're also looking for collecting data on Sierra Nevada red fox, a rare subspecies found only on the high mountaintops in Oregon and California, wolves, which have returned to the east side of the National Forest, and Pacific marten as well. So several different target species in spite of the name, the Wolverine Tracking Project. One main goal of the project is to inform better wildlife conservation and management, and the data has contributed to a number of different studies. I'm highlighting here the conservation strategy for Sierra Nevada red fox. All the data for the Mount Hood area were provided by the Wolverine Tracking Project. And the data is also contributed to other large-scale monitoring projects by Institute for Natural Resources at OSU and others. So it has collected some important data over the years. But as a community science, why community science? So the community aspect is just as important as the data collection. Why community science? Well, people often need a reason to get outside, and people learn better when it's tied to a purpose. So in our busy world, it's really easy to say, oh, no, I have better things today than go out for a hike. But being a part of a project gives people that motivation to go out. And if you think about it, who we are and what we value is a product of our experiences. Every time you go outside, you learn something new. The more you go out, the more the natural world becomes integrated into your experiences and becomes part of who you are and what you value. So this is teaching people to value the natural world. And it's also about teaching them to understand it as well. So learning theory says that we learn best by doing. So basically, we're creating that space where learning can happen. So people aren't having to pay for a class, sit for a class. They're actually doing that learning as part of contributing to science. So a little bit about the nitty-gritty. What do? We do 3 different types of surveys. We use trail cams that take pictures of animals that are out there. We do tracking surveys, which is looking for footprints in the snow, footprints and other sign. And then we also do what we call scat surveys, which is basically asking volunteers to hike the trails and look for scat, because scat can provide genetic samples, which can provide a real wealth of information for scientists. I want to talk a little bit more about wildlife tracking because it's something that not a lot of people are familiar with. So basically identifying the footprints and other signs that are left by an animal. And tracking is not straightforward. Let me just put it that way. It can take many, many years to learn, to be able to recognize the tracks in all of their forms. For instance, all of those tracks in this picture are coyote, even though some of them are very unclear, and to be able to recognize that. So all of our tracking surveys are done in groups led by highly trained tracking leaders who have at least 2 years experience, usually much, much more than that, before we trust them to be able to accurately collect data for the project. And because of that, we also have an apprenticeship program to train new tracking leaders. And in many ways, this apprenticeship program and this emphasis on tracking is kind of our core volunteers and the core of who we are as an organization. So looking at wildlife and their signs really opens up a whole new way of seeing the world. And that's kind of why we put emphasis on it. It's kind of easy. It's easier to see with the tracking. I mean, the picture on the right there, that person wandering by, a skilled tracker could just glance at those footprints and say, oh yeah, a snowshoe hare walked or bounded through here last night, something that an untrained person would be completely oblivious to. But the wildlife cameras also play a role in this as well. I'm thinking of a story that one of our volunteers told me about. They looked through the pictures that they brought back on that SD card that they retrieved from the camera and saw that a bear had walked at the same place that they were a couple hours before. And it's experiences like this that change a place from just being scenery that you're hiking through to a place where there's animals, to like, this is their home that I'm coming into. And it's this change that we hope to make in people with this project. So in addition to collecting useful data, we're also building community and building excitement for the natural world, for being outside, for understanding what we see out there. And with that, for caring about the natural world. Creating a community of people who will intelligently support wildlife and habitat conservation and realize their role as stewards of this earth is really what we're trying to accomplish. So a little bit of the nitty-gritty stats. What have we accomplished? So we're right in the middle of our summer 2024 season. We have 161 volunteers this summer. To date, over 1,800 volunteer hours, 21 cameras deployed, 78 miles of scat surveys. We're about where we expected, maybe a little higher. So we'll see what the numbers actually come out to at the end of the season, but we're right on target. Every season we try and do a special trip for people who wouldn't normally be able to get outside and have experiences like this. So actually, this is last winter, you can tell from the picture below. We did a trip for Cascade Education Corps, which is a program that provides job skills for youth at risk. So it was really fun to be able to take them out. And yeah, reaching out to new people like that is an important part of the project as well. Plans for winter for our new grant coming up. We have been very focused on the Mount Hood National Forest. We have been talking to a biologist with the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area, though, who is really interested in having surveys done on their land. Though most of that area has never been surveyed for these species, and a wolverine definitely passed through there. So this seems like a really important and useful and exciting expansion into this area. So to accomplish that, we'd like 5 additional cameras and hopefully like a 10% increase in our tracking surveys and volunteer recruitment and stuff like that. And hopefully we're also working on doing a little more outreach to the special groups. So hopefully we can increase that number of trips from 1 to at least a couple. So that is the project in short. Yeah, and we'd definitely like to thank the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund and the advisory committee for your support. Would not be able to do this without you, and I am very, very grateful.
Terry,
Okay.
thank you so much for that great report. I want you to know that you articulated extremely well the connection with getting people out and using citizen science. And you were one of the first, way back when, one of the first projects we funded. And that went a long ways to inform the committee about your concepts of community science and the importance and how you're able to connect people to the outdoors through the efforts. And you articulated it so well in your talk today. It makes me feel really good that we were able to fund you way back when we had very little money. And so that's very gratifying to me. So thank you very much for the work that you're doing. And the fact that the person that made that Wolverine sighting was associated with your group, that is just great validation of everything you said. So thank you very much for the great work you're doing. And again, it's gratifying to be part of it in some way by having fun in you. So thank you very much.
Great.
Mark Labhart.
Yeah, Terry, you were thanking the OCRF Advisory Committee. We also need to, as Carl just did, thank you. 1,825 hours of volunteer time. I don't know what we'd put a cost on that, but that's significant. 161 people volunteering. There's a cost for that. You bought 21 cameras or had 21 cameras to do that. You know, if you just think about what that value of that is for not only for fish and wildlife and the species that we're, you know, trying to find more information about, but you know, what you were talking about, people getting out in the woods and walking around and enjoying the outdoors, but you can't put a value on that either. So can't thank you enough. 1,825 hours. That's a lot of really good volunteer effort that goes into some really good work. So thank you on behalf of Fish and Wildlife Department for your work. I'm sure glad OCRF was able to fund you.
Thanks, Mark. Liza Jane.
Thank you, Terry. That's so interesting. Such a great way to get people out. I support that idea fully. I'm asking about Wallowa County because that's where I live, and I know we've had Wolverine sightings, and I've been able to see the Sierra red foxes here up in the Eagle Caps. And so is there any possibility of expanding, or is that work being done, or is it already got done up here?
I don't know of anyone doing it. I don't know. Would you guys be interested in funding an expansion up there? That'd be fun.
There we go.
Send us an application.
Thank you.
I agree. I think my little bit of experience up there, that it would be a great spot to consider getting something like that going, expanding where you're at. It sounds like you're successful enough now. You're expanding into the gorge. Maybe that's something to think about. And maybe depending always on funding, the OCRF might be able to help with something like that.
Yeah, funding has always been a big issue for us as a really small organization. So we're very grateful for you guys' support. And yeah, actually, I would be really interested in working in the Wallowas.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, figure something out and let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, any other comments or questions for Terry? Again, really appreciate you taking the time and for the great work you're doing. I think
Yeah,
we're good.
for some people, community science is a really hard sell because it's not quite science and it's not, you know, quite education or something, but that intersection I think is really important. So I'm really glad that you guys agree with that.
We get a lot of applications referring to citizen science, and I think you really, in many ways, for me, are the gold standard of how that works. because you get hard data, you get some real useful data. And at the same time, you're doing all the things that you articulated so well and getting people connected with the outdoors. So good on you and keep
Thank
it
you.
up.
Thank you.
All right. Well, great. Thank you very much. And I guess, Reva, we are going to take a break. Is that right?
That's right. Mhm.
Okay, why don't we take a break? It's 2:28. Let's try to get back about 2:35 since we're running a little bit late. 2:35, we'll recommence. Okay, we'll see y'all shortly. All right, so we got people filtering back in. Reva, is Tim going to give a presentation on the communication strategy? Is that the plan at this point? Or just an update?
I'm giving an update.
Great. Great. Well, I think we got a lot of folks back. So yeah, I think the subcommittee working on this communication strategy. I guess it's a subcommittee. Mauricio has been doing a huge amount of work on it, as has Tim and Reva. And also Adam with the department has been meeting regularly and talking about the best way to move forward. And so we had asked Tim to come and kind of give us an update on where things were. And so with that, Tim, you want to let us know how things are going?
Yeah, happy to do that. Let me start with really thanking Adam. He kicked off the process of going through Oregon buys. There are about 600 firms in Oregon buys that would fit the category of marketing, public relations, strategic communications. And he painstakingly went through that list of 600 firms to narrow it to just about 60. We developed an RFP that echoed the needs that were expressed in the strategic plan in a request for proposal document for the firms we reached out to respond against. We sent it to, I think it was a total of 57 firms received the RFP. I think there were a handful of others that got it forwarded to them. Ultimately, 16 of those contacted expressed interest in applying, and we ultimately received 12 proposals. So we are now in the midst of, we've gone through a couple of different rounds of review and comparing notes as a team. So Reva, Adam, Mauricio, and myself reading those, and Carl was a part of our last conversation, but basically looking at what they sent to us in terms of a proposal, if they answered the questions in the RFP, and the extent to which we felt confidence in their ability as a company to deliver the goals and objectives they outlined that would help support full implementation of our strategic plan. So I think overall we got a pretty good set of proposals back. We have narrowed them down, roughly speaking, to the top 3. And what we want to do is get it down to 2. And then the next steps would be to actually schedule a video chat with each of those firms or individuals in at least one case, and ask them to do a short presentation. Basically, tell us what you told us, but in your own words, and then give us an opportunity to ask questions, sort of extend our understanding of how they in fact would deliver on what they're proposing to do for us. So when and as we get that narrowed to 2, which it should be in the next day or so, I'll be reaching out to schedule those video chats with them. And then with luck, we'll coalesce around a finalist, and then we can get going on contracting with that individual or firm. So that's kind of where we're at with the process. I think it's been good. There are definitely some proposals we received that were very expensive, well beyond our budgets. There were others that were clearly within a reasonable budget, and but also seem like they've got a good track record. They've got experience doing the very thing we're asking. So I feel pretty good about the process and where we're at.
Thanks, Tim. Tim's been doing a tremendous amount of work on this. I think it's important for the committee to understand the funding from this. As you know, there's some unrestricted funds that have come in through the foundation. In that, correct me if I'm wrong, around 30,000, something like that. But that's not enough to cover what we're looking at. We're sort of thinking somewhere between 80 and 100,000 is what it's going to take to make this successful. And so we do also have, and Sarah has looked at it and felt it was appropriate, tapping into the Fishhawk Lake funds that are sitting at Oregon Wildlife Foundation as well to get us to that number. And the whole idea is that we're going to spend that money to get the word out about the OCRF, but at the same time, the Oregon Conservation Strategy and how it all fits in, and hopefully more than recoup that funding through communicating with donors and with the private sector. And also I'm hopeful that we've done so well with the website and the licensing. I still think we need to try again, once again, the hunters and fishermen are carrying the load, and we, as part of this communication strategy, it would be great to figure out how to expand beyond that in a different way, so we're able to communicate with people that are not necessarily hunting and fishing. I mean, those folks, they're ponying up money every month as they buy their licenses, and so we certainly want to get the word out to them, and but also to other users of the outdoors. So that's all part of the strategy. Any questions or comments for Tim? Tim? Tim?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to field those. I did. Happy to field any questions. Also wanted to comment on the Wolverine previous conversation, if that's possible. But any questions where we're at with the marketing communications, our search?
Mark Stern?
Yeah, Tim, that's a great update. I really appreciate all the work you've gone through. I can't imagine Adam going from 600 vendors to 60. That sounds difficult at best. But I was just curious what the time frame is once you've selected a contractor, when you're expecting them to work and deliver you drafts or products, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we built that into the proposal to try to have the bulk of the work done no later than the end of January 2025. Some of them have proposed to or a need to extend a little further depending on the data collection needs and the pace of that and how that goes given the holidays and the fall and all that stuff. So, but one of the things all of them are very focused on delivering for us is key marketing communications piece ready to go for the legislature and sort of effectively communicating all of the good work that OCRF is doing and encouraging continued support by the legislature for what OCRF does and is really in place to do in the future. So.
Yeah, that'll be great timing. So good job there.
Right on. Well, I was just gonna. It was very, very nice to listen to Terry's presentation on the Cascadia Wilds project, and I just wanted to remind the committee that you did actually, in fact, fund a Wolverine study in the Wallowas. The Wallowa Wolverine project was actually one of our fiscally sponsored projects. Did a 3-year study, and that was on top of the work that Oregon Wildlife Foundation had underwritten previously by Audrey McGowan, who actually, in fact, was the one who discovered the presence of wolverines in the Eagle Cap. So there's been a fair bit of work done in the Wallowas on the presence of wolverine. And all that said, the principal researchers, Scott and Kayla, have relocated to Alaska. They're actually doing similar work up there now. Scott was down last spring to pull SIM cards and then pull down the camera traps that had been deployed. And again, just the only wolverine actually caught on camera was Stormy, and so nothing is. Stormy's still the eternal bachelor wolverine of the Wallowas. no new discoveries. So that was really the hope, but that didn't transpire. All that said, if Terry and Cascadia Wild want to do work there, if there's any way we can help facilitate introductions or otherwise support the work, I would encourage her to reach out, and we'll do what we can. Oh, and then the other note, in just a small world, she mentioned that they had done a kind of a special presentation for the Cascade Education Corps, which is a program that I ran way back when, in the dark ages, when I was a lot younger, for 6.5 years. So it is truly small world when it comes down to it.
Well, that's a great thing. Again, the OCRF is sort of at a juncture of a lot of different places, and one of our roles is to maybe get people together and make things happen. Terry, are you still with us or not? And if not, Reva,
I am listening. Thank you.
so
Yeah, thank you for that.
great. Maybe you and Tim can communicate, and we can come up with something. Because I remembered that we funded that after we talked about that. It's like, oh yeah, we were already doing something out there. So that would be a great continuation, and maybe we can expand that again. So thanks, Tim. Thanks for that. One of the things I did, Tim mentioned the idea of using this communication outreach to communicate with the legislature. And as you all know, we're in the middle of, or not in the middle, we're getting to be in the middle of decisions on funding. And it's not, the current situation is I think is a little different. I'm not sure that what happened, as far as I recall, is we're not in the, I guess that was the short session, but in any event, we're about to embark on trying to get some funding for the OCRF through the legislature. We have the $5 million for Wildlife Crossing, but then that would not allow us to fund all these other projects that we've just been hearing about. Terry's project, we need to have that funding gap filled in some manner. We've had conversations with Debbie at the director's office about that. She's very much in favor of really focusing on alternative funding for the OCRF and for other sort of the non-game part of the ODF&W budget. So we really have the timing and the opportunity with this communication strategy is really good. I think we need to start trying to gear up for that. Srishti is very well connected to what's happening. She's not here. But all of us need to be thinking about that and ways we could contribute or figure out how we can go about that. And I think maybe it's time to have another conversation with Sarah and Debbie. Debbie came in and told us very early on that it was her number one priority. But of course, she's got a lot of things on her plate. But I think we maybe need to make that happen. So Reva, maybe you can talk to Sarah and find a opportune time that I would certainly, and maybe have a conversation. I'd include Mark Stern and Srishti and myself in that, just a preliminary thing. Kind of touch back on our conversations we had here in Klamath Falls, and just sort of figure out where we stand. So really important stuff. Again, I mean, I'm concerned the legislature goes, so, well, you got $5 million funding, but that cuts out everything else we've been doing. So we have to come up with another mechanism. Mike, Tody?
Yeah, thanks for not part of this conversation, but along those lines, the more you show the commitment of funding that you have there, sometimes the more you can demonstrate the need for more. That's certainly something we're talking about. Let's say, for instance, with Wildlife Crossings there, and OHA and others, Srishti, have been involved in trying to find alternative sources of funding. I know Commissioner Labhart has worked on some of that in the past as well. Those are challenging conversations, but we are planning to have that conversation again in the legislature here this winter.
Well, we look forward to working with you, Mike. We should definitely stay connected on that because it's getting to be existential for us in many ways. We have to come up with a consistent stream of funding to make all this work. Is Mark Labhart, are you still on the call?
I am. I'm here. I would just offer this, Carl. You know, we can't actually, and Reva's probably biting her lip a little bit. We have to be careful because we can't lobby the legislature unless it's in the governor's budget or, you know, it has a POP that's been approved by the legislature. But we sure can provide information. And so, you know, if Representative Helms' committee gives a call to the department and says, we'd really like a presentation about what OCRF has accomplished in the last few years, because we understand they're doing great things and we'd like an information presentation. That is huge. And as far as that public outreach, we can, you know, put together a program and have you come in and provide that. They're going to be having, you know, legislative days for a while here now until the session starts up in February of next year. And so, you know, there could be an opportunity there where we could get in front of some legislators, not lobbying, but providing information to them about what we're doing. So, I mean, that's perfectly legal, perfectly fine. And maybe there's an opportunity if some of you have contacts with Representative Helm, maybe we could get a presentation, something like that. So.
Well, thanks, Mark. First of all, I'm shocked that you would think that I would imply that we should lobby. I always thought we were just talking about information, never lobbying, you know that. But be that as it may, we do need to do what we can do. So maybe it'd be great to have you part of the conversation, Mark. Mark Stern.
Yeah, and just a reminder, I think people remember that Rep. Marsh last year, at least in the short session, I think was making an effort to direct some funding for low-tech, whatever that's called, low-tech beaver restoration funds to OCRF, and could be an opportunity to provide her with some more information too.
Yeah. Yes, again, Sristi's kind of got her finger on that pulse. We need to communicate with Sristi on it. But boy, I mean, that's great to hear she's getting married. I have to reach out to her about that. Okay, so any other comments about our communication strategy and the funding and all that? So Reva, we have some things to talk about as far as next, you know, further agenda, and maybe talk with Sarah. Okay, well, I think, has anybody got anything else they want to bring up or discuss? Reva, you good with where we're at?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. It was a great meeting as usual. I look forward to our next one, and we'll have a great agenda. Thank you all, and get out there and continue enjoying it all. See ya.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.